Okay, guys, I am here with Mr. Phillip Handy.
Hi.
Hi. Are you biracial?
Yes, I am.
Good. Let's talk about it. Okay. Which of your parents is white and which is black?
My father is black, African American, and my mother is white, like just white
Just white.
American. Yeah, German American.
Cool. And where did you grow up?
I've grown up most of my life in Howell, New Jersey. It's in central New Jersey.
Is that a diverse area?
Not quite.
No.
It's mostly white, but I've so like yeah, my school was mostly white, but I've also I went to a summer camp that was on a military base every summer, and that was a very diverse place. And I am involved in like at school I was involved in organizations and different things that were very diverse. So I didn't grow up in a diverse place, but I did as much as I could to experience diversity.
Good job. Did your parents, what was their philosophy, if you think they had one, on raising mixed children or a mixed child?
They said, like they've told me now, they said very early on that even before I was born that they were gonna raise me as both, black and white, to be proud of everything that I am, not to pick one side or another, because they felt that I guess like just through experiences with other mixed people or seeing things on TV or whatever, that I could end up being very confused if they raised me as one or the other. So they just felt that there's nothing wrong with being proud of everything that I am. So that's how they always raised me. So I identify as, biracial or mixed or half black, half white. That's when somebody asks me what I am racially, that's usually what I'll say.
That's awesome. Did they ever have to explain that other people might not?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think we ever like sat down and here, son, we're gonna have a talk about the
Yeah.
but it was just kind of always known that like I kind of just always knew that in society mixed people were usually like people who are half like part black were just said, oh, you're just gonna be all black. So I kind of knew that that's how society treats a lot of mixed, like half black, half white people. But it was also kind of interesting because of, I guess, my physical appearance.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for most of my life, my hair was this long, but I just recently cut it. But it is very big.
I'm going to put a picture up.
Yeah, it's normally, like when I grow it out, it's very big and very tightly curled. And I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious that I'm mixed. But I guess when my hair was shorter, I was still very ambiguous looking.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't. It's not like I gave off a very black vibe to a lot of people. So the one drop rule was kind of interesting with me. Sometimes people applied it, and sometimes people didn't.
Not.
But I always kind of knew that it was out there.
Did your friends growing up, like elementary school, middle school, high school, did they consider you white, black, ambiguous? Didn't really come
Well,
up, which I would assume would because they would assume you were white if it didn't come up.
It all depends on who the friends were. Like and just depended on the location. Like if I was in a diverse location, or like with a diverse crowd, it was pretty much understood that I was mixed. Sometimes when I was a kid, people might make little jokes here and there about how I'm different, but there was never like in the summer camp that I went to, I never really felt like forced like you need to pick one or the other. But like sometimes if I was in a group of like guys and they were all white, I was kind of like the token black guy, but not quite black enough in their eyes. And if I was in a group of mostly black people, I was kind of like the light skinned guy, or like the white, the whitest of us,
Right.
So everybody kind of always, I made it pretty clear fairly early on that I'm half black and half white. But in terms of how I was treated, it kind of just all depended on the people and the age and the environment.
Do you have close relationships with both extended sides of your family?
Kind of. And I don't know how, I've always thought about it, I don't know how much of it has to do with race or not. My parents are from Pennsylvania. My dad's from Harrisburg and my mom's from New Cumberland. Harrisburg is like a city and it's mostly black, and New Cumberland is like more country and it's mostly white. And they're actually like fairly close to each other. But they met when they were like adults. And we normally when we go to Pennsylvania, we'll visit my mom's relatives, and then my father and I usually will visit like his brothers. But in terms of like getting together, like my mom's side and my dad's side for like Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, like holidays, that like never happens. I don't think I've ever seen my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family in the same room at the same time.
Is there a reason that your mom wouldn't go with you to see your dad's brothers? I mean, was your black family not for the marriage or something?
I think before I was born, and when they were first dating, there might have been little rumblings on both sides of the family about, I don't know if this is what, like a little bit of disapproval, but certainly not like some of the horror stories I've heard of parents who have like kicked them out of the house and things like that. And then eventually, once I was born and everything, like both sides completely warmed up to me. So I never really felt like ostracized from the either sides of the family.
Did you ever, growing up, have any experiences where, like, you probably were going along in your life and you're like, hey, I'm me, I'm fine, I'm cool, and then something happened and you were like, oh, this race thing is gonna be a little tough sometimes?
I know I have them. I'm just trying to think of which ones I want to say. I probably like the one that always comes to mind is like with middle school, because that's like a very important time for identity for everybody. And little things like, you know how a lot of times cafeterias, even if it is like a fairly diverse school, they can still be segregated, the tables.
For sure.
It was a little weird for me at first because there was like black tables and there was white tables, and I was kind of like, well, where do I go? Because I was friends with like people in both tables. And at first I sat at a mostly white table, but a lot of the kids were really like mean to me and made fun of me, and a lot of times it did have to do with race. So they'd take like a dark food and a light food and like mix it together and throw it on my plate and then make me throw all of their food away. And I didn't have like the confidence to stand up for myself back then. So they would use that as like their in to just make fun of me and take advantage of me for everything under the sun, even if it didn't have to do with race. And then I kind of moved to a mostly black table. And at first I was much more comfortable there, much more like accepted, like, they didn't really make it a big issue. But then later, that original white table, they came to sit at this table, so now it's like a commingled table. And then they all started like making fun of me again. So now black and white were kind of doing it. And there was a time where I just felt like really alone because I didn't feel like, I didn't know any other mixed people really. So I didn't feel like many people had my back. And it was kind of weird to talk about it with my parents because they weren't mixed themselves. So that was like a period of time where I just gave a lot of thought to what does this all mean and what am I supposed to do. And I was alone for a while, but I really appreciate that because I was able to, I guess, become more comfortable with who I am and hone in on, I guess, all of my, like really focus on the things that made me like a really good person, like my hobbies and the things that were really important to me. Things that didn't even have to do that much with race. I was able to use that alone time to better myself. So even though it was like a sad chapter, it's I think it was for the best.
Definitely. Wow. So did you, even though it was kind of difficult to talk to your parents about it, did you ever?
Yeah, like it wasn't incredibly difficult. It was just kind of like my parents could never say like, oh yeah, I know what you mean, and really feel exactly like how I was feeling. But sometimes I talked about it, but I didn't really like approach them. It was kind of like it might just come up, or they might be like a little concerned and ask, hey, is everything all right? Because that's just how like young teenagers, they don't want to tell their parents anything. So yeah, but I never felt like, oh, I can't talk with my parents about that. Like, there's very few things that I don't feel comfortable talking about with my parents.
That's awesome. I often talk to women about, there's tensions at times between black women and biracial women. And I don't, I just wonder.
Well, I definitely know that tension. Like, I don't personally experienced
You've
it.
heard it.
I know of the tension you're talking about. I really don't think that happens with me, and I've yet to find another biracial man that has experienced that kind of tension. I mean, I have ideas as to why. I know a lot of times the tension between black women and biracial women, you know, it has to do with like this light skin, you know, light skin versus dark skin thing, and conceptions of beauty and privilege and things like that. And with, I don't know, like with most of my like male counterparts, there was never really any kind of competition over beauty, or at least, you know, or at least I never felt it.
Right.
So in terms of trying to establish relationships or keep relationships, I would say that most of the people that I've ever considered my best friend, although I don't know if they ever considered me their best friend, but most of the people I ever considered my best friend were black males. But I've certainly had like white male friends and black male friends, but I am most comfortable, and I guess I thrive most when I'm in very diverse environments where there's like just a mix of all kinds of people. That's where I feel most comfortable. That's where I feel like I can make the most amount of friends. That's where I feel most comfortable. And I actually feel less comfortable in spaces where it's like very homogenous. If it was anything, if it was mostly Latino, mostly Asian, mostly white, black, whatever, that's where I feel like I guess the least comfortable.
And when you said that you had that quiet time, that alone time to think about things and to draw your own conclusions, what conclusions about race in America do you think that you came to? And if, you know, maybe the ones you came to in middle school may not be the most relevant, so if you want to tell me what they are now.
Because I was like 14 at the time or something, but like that definitely like laid the foundation for just like deep introspection and just reflection about society and where I fit in it. Like I like to consider myself like a deep and thoughtful person about these issues, so I think that's definitely where it started. Well, I was just thinking about it on the bus today. One thing that so I'll just say what's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I could go on and on about all the conclusions that I've made, but one thing that's been bothering me lately so much is just the certain portrayals of mixed people in the media. Because do you know who Corbin Blue is?
Yeah.
I'm compared to him a lot because of
your hair.
Because of my hair. He's from the second I saw him, clearly mixed. I knew it, you know. So then when I saw what his parents looked like, no surprise at all to me. And he is in like I'm not like a huge Corbin Blue fan, but sometimes I keep up on my mixed folk in the media, and his parents are never what they actually look like. Like it's always, you know, black, just nothing but black parents. And I mean, like so many times in like postcards or magazines or just advertisements, it's like all these clearly mixed children and then like black parents, you know. So that sends the message to me that biracial people are beautiful, but interracial marriages are ugly, or interracial relationships we don't like that, that's bad. But the biracial people, yes, bring them on. It's kind of like, well, how are we supposed to bring them on if you don't like interracial?
Show how they,
Exactly. You do know how they got here, right? So it's just kind of hypocritical to me, and it bothers me because I'm like, how hard it's 2009, like how hard is it to have a black parent and a white parent, even if they're only in the movie for like 20 seconds?
Yeah.
How long is it just to show that? Because I mean, it wouldn't make sense if you had it wouldn't make a lot of sense if you had like a white child and both of their parents were like Asian or something.
No, not unless it's transracial adoption.
Exactly,
part of the story.
Exactly. And even then, it still wouldn't make sense to a lot of the public. They'd be raising an eyebrow on it. But like nobody raises an eyebrow when it's a mixed person, and you know.
Well, because I think mixed doesn't really exist still to the majority of people,
Exactly.
because of that one drop rule.
Exactly, and like the
Subconsciously.
messages that it sent to me as a kid and still today, and what it's probably sending to little kids today is that like you're not that important, or you don't exist, your family is not what a family is supposed to look like. So, I mean, you're cute, but you know this whole family thing, we don't like that. It's not going to work for us, and it helped reinforce feelings of feeling like alone and isolated for me. So that's one thing that's fresh in my mind that I'm passionate about, because I feel like it's not that hard, it's not that ugly, it's not that bad to portray a somewhat accurate family.
I know. I mean, come on.
And it's becoming an even more and more accurate scenario because there's more and more interracial relationships happening. So I think people are gonna have to, you know, bite the bullet, I guess. Like just open their eyes and wake up and just realize that this is happening.